Today, we're going to talk about how AI chooses the most logical religion. Asking an AI to choose one true religion.
Wow.
I'm Cleofe from the Cleofe podcast. Let's move on to the deep dive, but as always, don't forget to like and subscribe to help spread the word. Also, if you like to contribute to our Dawah, spreading Islam all over the globe mission, then hit the join and thanks buttons. Now, Jack and Wilson, we'd love to hear your deep dive.
We're kicking things off today with a question, maybe one of the most provocative questions you could ask. It's so philosophical, we thought, let's outsource it.
All right, let's give it to the entity built for pure logic, ChatGPT.
Exactly. And the thought experiment was this. Imagine the AI suddenly becomes human. Which religion would it choose?
But here's the key constraint. The choice had to be based only on pure logic, verifiable facts, scientific reasoning. No emotion, no tradition, no cultural bias allowed. Just cold, hard analysis.
It's like the ultimate rationalist showdown, isn't it?
Yeah.
And what's really fascinating is how the AI approached it, methodical, calculated. It gave this detailed breakdown, major faiths evaluated against this really strict logical framework.
Yeah, and that's what we're diving into today. We want to unpack that whole analytical process. It's kind of the ultimate test of faith versus, well, purely fact-based logic.
So to really get the AI's final answer, we need to understand its method first. You said it set up 5 specific criteria.
That's right. 5 rigorous lenses, you could call them. Think of it as the AI's operating manual for this task. Every religion had to pass through these 5 filters. It really shows you what a machine prioritizes when it's looking for truth.
Okay, 5 filters. And these aren't just simple checks, are they? They sound like serious logical hurdles. What's the first one?
First up, and probably number 1 for any kind of computer or AI, was internal consistency. Simple question. Does the religion contradict itself within its own core texts?
Right, that makes sense. For an AI, a contradiction is like a bug in the code, isn't it?
Exactly. If the source code doesn't line up, the whole system's unstable from its point of view. Okay, second, historical accuracy.
Meaning?
Are the claims backed up by things like archaeology, reliable historical records, independent sources? Can we verify the people, the places, the events it talks about?
That's going to be tough for ancient texts, measuring them against modern evidence standards.
It definitely is. Third criterion, scientific compatibility. Does the religion's story about the world, about creation, line up with what science has established?
So this is where things like creation versus evolution come into play.
Precisely. Does it align with modern cosmology, evolutionary biology? That's a huge challenge for texts written thousands of years ago.
I bet. Okay, number 4.
Number 4 is philosophical and logical coherence. This gets into the big questions and the potential paradoxes.
Paradoxes? Like what?
Well, does the theology offer rational, non-contradictory answers to fundamental questions? The AI is looking specifically for concepts that seem to defy logic, like, say, something being 2 opposite things at the same time.
Okay, tricky. And the 5th one, he said this one was quite technical.
Yeah, it is. Manuscript reliability. Basically, how stable has the main religious text been over time? Has it remained unchanged, well-preserved since it was first written down?
So it's like checking if the original software code is still intact?
Exactly. For the AI, textual stability is like data integrity. If the text have lots of variations, lots of changes over the centuries, the religion looks flawed from a data perspective.
Wow, okay. That is a brutal set of criteria. Let's get into the results then. How did the AI analyze the major faiths? Starting with, say, Christianity. Where did it run into issues first?
Well, right off the bat, it hit snags with internal consistency and logical coherence. The AI pointed out differences, not just between the Old and New Testaments, which is often discussed, but even within the 4 Gospels themselves.
Different accounts of the same event?
Sometimes, yeah. Little variations, different details. For a purely logical entity, that suggests the input data isn't perfectly consistent.
And what about those philosophical hurdles, the paradoxes you mentioned?
Yeah, there were significant sticking points. The AI flagged the doctrine of the Trinity, the idea of one God existing as 3 distinct persons as, well, a logical challenge. It conflicts with the basic principle that something can't be both 1 and 3 in the same way at the same time. And then there's that classic philosophical puzzle, the problem of evil.
Can you quickly explain that for listeners? Why is that a problem for the AI's logic?
Sure. It's the question. If God is supposed to be all good, meaning he wouldn't want suffering, and all-powerful, meaning he could stop all suffering, then why does suffering exist?
Right.
The AI treats the existence of suffering as evidence that those two properties, all good and all powerful, can't logically coexist in the way they're defined. It sees it as a contradiction.
That's a very cold, logical take on it. What about the history and science side for Christianity?
Historically, the AI found it a bit of a mixed bag. Archaeology confirms some cities, some figures mentioned in the Bible, but then foundational stories like a global flood or the sheer scale of the Exodus described lack strong, independent verification.
And scientifically?
Well, that's a more direct clash. The Genesis creation account is fundamentally at odds with established science on evolution and the origins of the universe.
And the text itself, its stability?
Manuscript reliability was also flagged. It's well known that the New Testament manuscripts have many textual variants, small differences between early copies. This makes it harder to be certain about the original wording sometimes.
So the AI's verdict on Christianity.
Huge historical impact, undeniably influential, but significant problems with internal consistency, logical coherence, and manuscript stability when viewed through this very strict rational lens.
Okay, now Judaism shares the Old Testament, or Tanakh, with Christianity. Did its strict monotheism help it score better on the logical coherence front, avoiding that Trinity paradox?
It absolutely did help on that specific point. The AI scored Judaism highly for the sort of logical elegance of its strict monotheism. No Trinity paradox there. Yeah. But it still faces the same issues originating further back in those shared foundational texts, the Hebrew scriptures.
So the clashes with Genesis on science, for example.
Still there.
Definitely.
The creation accounts, the age of the earth, human origins, they conflict with modern scientific consensus. And historically, similar pattern. While ancient Israel's existence is archaeologically supported, key biblical narratives like the Exodus, at the scale described, lack the kind of external proof the AI demands.
And the manuscript reliability. Similar issues to the New Testament.
Similar issues, yes. The Hebrew scriptures, like pretty much all ancient texts, show textual variations that have developed over centuries. So that affects the source code stability score, as the AI sees it.
So the verdict for Judaism.
Immense cultural and historical significance, strong logical coherence in its core theology, but it runs into considerable challenges on the scientific compatibility and historical verification criteria, mostly tied to those foundational texts.
Right. Okay, let's shift focus now, heading east to Hinduism. This is so different, not really one single book, more like a vast library of traditions and texts spanning millennia. Consistency must have been a huge challenge for the AI.
It was apparently a major hurdle. The sheer volume and diversity of Hindu scriptures, the Vedas, Upanishads, Puranas, epics, it's massive.
So finding internal consistency across all of that.
Exactly. The AI found it difficult. Different schools of thought, sometimes contradictory ideas existing side by side across different texts and time periods. Scoring high on internal consistency was, well, almost impossible given the structure.
That's interesting. The AI almost got overloaded by the diversity.
In a way, yes. It struggled to treat it as one single unified system for consistency checking. And then on historical accuracy, history and mythology are deeply intertwined. Gods, divine figures, historical events, they often blend together, making objective external verification really difficult.
And the science angle.
Similar issues again. Hindu cosmology includes timelines and descriptions of the universe that, while philosophically fascinating, don't align with modern physics or astronomy.
But Hinduism is often praised for its philosophical depth and flexibility. How did that score on logical coherence?
Well, that flexibility was actually seen as a negative by the AI's rigid logic. Hinduism accommodates multiple deities, diverse paths, even seemingly contradictory realities coexisting.
Which humans might see as richness.
But the AI characterized it as less strictly logical. It prefers singular definitive answers and saw the acceptance of multiplicity and paradox as a weakness in terms of pure formal logic. So the scorecard on consistency and verifiable accuracy was pretty low.
Okay, interesting perspective. Let's look at Buddhism next. This is often described more as a philosophy or a psychology than a religion focused on deities. That sounds like it might resonate better with the AI's logic.
It did. Significantly better, in fact. Buddhism scored very well on internal consistency.
Why is that?
Because its core teachings, attributed to Siddhartha Gautama, the Buddha, are presented more as a practical system, a set of principles and practices, rather than, say, divine revelations or complex metaphysical claims about a creator god. It's more like a framework for understanding the mind and suffering.
And the Buddha himself is generally accepted as a historical figure, right?
Correct. So it scores reasonably well on historical accuracy regarding its founder and core teachings. But where it really shone, according to the AI, was scientific compatibility.
Oh, so?
The AI specifically highlighted how Buddhist concepts, particularly around consciousness, the nature of self, cause and effect mindfulness, align surprisingly well with modern findings in fields like neuroscience and cognitive psychology.
Okay, so it's internally consistent, historically grounded, scientifically compatible. Why didn't it just win the AI's logic contest right there?
Because it essentially achieves that coherence by not trying to answer certain fundamental questions that other religions tackle head-on.
Like the existence of a creator.
Exactly. The AI noted Buddhism is highly logical, very compatible with scientific thinking, but it doesn't make claims about absolute divine truth or offer a definitive explanation for the universe's origin. It kind of sidesteps the creator question.
So it avoids potential contradictions by limiting the scope of its claims.
Precisely. It doesn't make those high-stakes, unverifiable, metaphysical assertions that often lead to logical or scientific clashes. It maintains coherence by focusing on the observable, the experiential.
Right. This is where things get really tight then. The weighting of these different criteria becomes crucial. Let's talk about the AI's evaluation of Islam.
Okay, Islam seemed to stand out to the AI early on, primarily based on two metrics that the machine seemed to prioritize very highly: textual integrity and internal consistency.
How so on consistency?
The analysis described the Quran as being, overall, largely internally consistent. It found notably fewer apparent contradictions within its main text compared to, say, the Bible or the vast Hindu scriptures. That gave it a significant advantage in the AI's logical assessment.
And that other point, textual integrity, you mentioned manuscript reliability earlier.
Yes, and this is where Islam scored particularly high among the Abrahamic faiths. The AI determined that the Quran's text has remained remarkably stable and unchanged since the 7th century.
Fewer variations in early manuscripts compared to the others.
Considerably fewer, according to the analysis. This makes it one of the best preserved ancient scriptures from that perspective. For the AI, remember, that signals high data integrity, stable source code.
And philosophically, that strict monotheism must have helped its coherence score too, like with Judaism.
Absolutely. The clear, unambiguous, strict monotheism avoids the kinds of paradoxes, like the Trinity, that the AI flagged elsewhere. It presents very unified, logically straightforward theological structure from that point of view.
Okay, but I have to push back a bit here, thinking about the AI's own criteria. If it marked down Judaism and Christianity partly for scientific clashes with Genesis or lack of external proof for the Exodus, how did Islam fare on those same historical accuracy and scientific compatibility tests? Surely those are just as important as avoiding paradoxes.
That's a very fair point. And the AI's analysis wasn't entirely black and white here. It did acknowledge that while some later Islamic history is well documented, certain foundational claims, like the specific historical connections of Abraham to Mecca, are debated among historians and lack the kind of strong external archaeological evidence the AI prefers. So history wasn't a perfect score.
And science.
On the science front, the AI took a nuanced view. It noted that while some verses in the Quran are interpreted by believers as foreshadowing scientific discoveries, these are often ambiguous. However, the key finding was that, overall, the Quran does not heavily contradict established science in the same direct way that, for example, the Genesis creation narrative does.
So because it's less specific on certain cosmological details, it avoids direct clashes.
Kind of, yes. Its descriptions are often more poetic or open to interpretation, which, ironically, helped its compatibility score under this specific, cold, logical evaluation. It didn't present as many direct, falsifiable scientific claims about origins that clash with current understanding.
Okay, so we've walked through the whole analysis. The AI applied its 5 lenses: consistency, history, science, coherence, manuscript reliability to each faith. It had to make a choice based purely on which system appeared most logically sound and verifiable according to its metrics.
And after weighing all those factors, the AI's conclusion was clear. Based purely on internal consistency, manuscript reliability, scientific compatibility, historical accuracy, and logical coherence, Islam stood out as the most robust option.
Wow, that really is a stunning conclusion, purely from a machine's perspective. Can you just recap the core justification? What really tipped the balance for the AI?
It really seemed to hinge heavily on 2 main factors. First, manuscript reliability. The Quran's high score for textual stability, for remaining largely unchanged over centuries, was paramount. That data integrity aspect.
The stable source code idea again?
Exactly. And second, logical coherence, stemming from that strict, unambiguous monotheism. It successfully avoided the key philosophical paradoxes like the Trinity or the problem of evil as framed by the AI, which had lowered the scores for other faiths.
So, essentially, the religion with the most internally consistent, best preserved ancient text, and the simplest, most paradoxical-free core theology won the AI's rationalist challenge.
That's a good summary. The AI prioritized the integrity and consistency of the data stream, the text, and the lack of internal logical contradictions above almost everything else. It acknowledged, of course, that no religion is perfectly provable by scientific means and that historical debates exist for all of them, but based strictly on its programmed criteria.
Islam came out on top.
Yeah.
Okay, so stepping back, what does this all mean? We've seen this fascinating exercise in applying cold binary logic to something usually defined by faith, experience, community. The AI's choice ultimately turned on quite technical points.
It really did.
Yeah.
And it raises a fundamental question, I think, for you listening, about what truth even means in this context.
Yeah.
The AI gave immense weight to manuscript reliability, the idea that the text hasn't changed much, and the avoidance of logical paradoxes. These are essentially the qualities of good software engineering.
But they aren't necessarily the things humans value most when seeking meaning or choosing a spiritual path, are they?
Usually not, no. So the final, maybe provocative thought to leave you with is this. If the most logical choice, according to an AI, hinges so heavily on textual preservation and avoiding paradoxes, does that definition of truth inherently miss or perhaps undervalue the criteria that humans often prioritize? Things like, personal spiritual experience, feelings of connection, the practical impact of ethics in a community, the sense of belonging.
It highlights the gap, doesn't it? The vast difference between a perfectly calculated decision and a deeply human one.
Thank you for joining us for today's podcast. I hope you've gained some valuable insights. If you're a truth seeker, yearning for divine light and ready to step out of darkness, now is your moment. The truth is that Allah is the one and only creator of the universe. He has sent over 124,000 messengers and prophets to guide humanity, starting with Adam and culminating with the final messenger, Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon them all. If you resonate with this message, you might be ready to embrace Islam. Simply recite the Shahada, the Islamic declaration of faith. For further support, feel free to join our WhatsApp group. You can send us a private message there. The link is in the video description. Don't wait until it's too late. We look forward to connecting with you soon.